Welcome to Dukascopy TV with me, Alex Izat. The leading economic index and the coincident economic index for Mexico suggest economic activity should continue to expand through the rest of the year, but an acceleration is unlikely. What is stopping Mexico becoming stronger? Joining us to discuss the economic situation is Rodrigo Aguilera from the Economist Intelligence Unit. Rodrigo, Mexico's peso sank to a more than two-year low last week. Is this a sign of slowing economic growth?
No, I would not say that it is. The peso, along with a lot of other world currencies, have weakened over the past couple of days or weeks, and this has to do mostly because the dollar has been strengthening. So it's not really a reflection of the Mexican peso being affected by domestic conditions. That is not to say, however, that if the economy were to remain relatively in a weak state over the next couple of quarters, that the outlook for the peso would still stay weak. But I would say right now, any major changes in the exchange rate is driven mostly by how the dollar is moving.
The head of the Central Bank of Mexico, Agustin Carstens, has publicly said that violence is holding the country back. Can the full blame be put on the gangs?
Well, the full blame in terms of whether violence is holding the country back, I mean, that's not the only reason, clearly, why the economy is not doing that well recently. But it's definitely one issue that I think has been played down significantly by, this administration and the past one to some extent as well, in the sense that as bad as the security situation is, that it has no major effect on economic performance. That is questionable, of course. I mean, it does have a significant impact in certain parts of the country. In other parts of the country where the situation is much more stable, then can't really say that it is having an impact. I mean, places like Querétaro, which are getting a lot of investment, the Bajío region especially, that's not that big a deal. But in other states like Guerrero, Michoacán, the ones that have been really the focus of some of the latest tragedies, I mean, definitely has an impact. I mean, these are towns that are basically controlled by drug cartels. There's a lot of extortion, there's a lot of kidnapping, and you can't really expect economic activity to thrive under these circumstances. So, yes, it does have an impact.
Is Mexico too reliant on other countries?
Well, clearly it's over-reliant on the U.S., but I'm not really sure whether there's much that can be done about it. I mean, if you think about it, the U.S. is a gigantic economy next to Mexico. There's obviously an enormous gravitational pull towards the U.S. market, so exports and imports are always going to be highly skewed in favor of the U.S. And I mean, the government knows this. There are efforts to diversify and look more south, look towards Asia, and you can expect some positive effect down the line. But I mean, it's unreasonable to suggest that the Mexican economy will ever be completely non-dependent on the U.S. I mean, look at Canada, for example. I mean, it's an industrial economy. It's a rich country, but still, it's as dependent on the U.S. as Mexico is.
Finally, can there be a positive outcome?
Yes, certainly. I mean, I think the structural reforms are definitely a positive step, at least in the fact that without these reforms, it is really doubtful that the economy could really grow much beyond what it has been growing over the past couple of years, which is, at the most sort of 3 to 4% or so. That does not mean that just because the reforms have been approved and just because they've been implemented, that guarantees that Mexico is suddenly going to rise up and start growing at 5% or more. I mean, there's issues of implementation, there's issues of institutional efficiency. As part of the reforms, there's a lot of different new regulatory agencies and bodies that are being created. Mexico's history in terms of regulatory quality is quite bad, so these things will matter in the long run. These bodies will make a difference in terms of these markets that are now being liberalized, whether they're going to function efficiently or not. And there's also an issue of whether the gains of the reforms will spread out evenly towards the rest of the population. This is a big question as well.
Thanks, Rodrigo. That's all we have time for today. Keep watching Dukascopy TV for more news on the market as it happens. Goodbye.